What's up, roller climbers? So glad you decided to click on this video. Today we're going to be going over another hack. Today's hack is all about retexturing polished climbing holds. This is actually my version 2 of retexturing holds. I do have another version of retexturing that I did on my channel a while ago involving using skateboard grip tape, and I'll put a link for that up there as well as down in the description. Personally, I think this one is going to be an upgrade. The skateboard grip tape solution had mixed results. So you can see here that I added black skateboard grip tape to this hold, and the texture is pretty reasonable. It's pretty realistic to what a new hold would feel like. And this one here is still in pretty good condition. Right next door we have a white one, and I found some clear grip tape, and that way it still shows the white color through. The texture on this clear grip tape was a bit too aggressive. Now the other thing to keep in mind is how well it stuck to the holds. The clear grip tape ended up having better adhesive than the black, so the black would peel off easier. But neither one of them were really phenomenal with using feet. So in this hold, most of it has worn off or ripped off from the footholds. And what I actually found with this black grip tape is that when a shoe would slip, it would take all the texture with and it would leave just the adhesive and a plastic layer. So it was like it was separating from itself. The white held up longer, but still it does end up peeling here. And then on certain holds, it just didn't stay on at all. So I don't think it was a complete bust, but I do think there's a better way. So I've been toying around with an idea that I'm going to show you today, and I've been working through several iterations. So behind me on the 30-degree wall, I have several different of my experimental holds. I wanted to try a bunch of different variations so that way I gave you the best possible one that would work. And also, I'm testing them on some holds that I got from a climbing gym that they were very, very polished, they're well used, and I got them very cheap. So I wanted to see if it was a way that you could actually salvage something that's very, very polished. And if it ends up working really, really well with these holds that are kind of lesser importance to me, then I'm going to redo the texture on the moonboard holds. So here was my idea. My idea was to use a spray-on bed liner, like a rhino liner, but a spray-on rhino liner. Key that I was looking for was looking for something that would adhere to plastics. A lot of the spray-on bed liners that are on the market, they say that they will work on metals and wood and things like that, but a lot of them do not specifically say plastics. And I found this brand right here, Herculiner, and this one specifically does say it will adhere to plastic. So this is what I've been working with. I have tried some other rubberized spray paint kind of solutions as well, and we'll see which of them works the best. Some of my early attempts were just spraying the bed liner on it. So this is a sloper that was very, very polished, very, very slippery, and it does add a bit of like friction, but it definitely does not add texture. So it's got a little bit more where your skin kind of holds onto it. Similarly, this yellow one here was an early attempt with just pure bed liner. So even going with just that, it is helpful. It does start to give additional texture and to feel like you can hold on a little bit better. And so then I had the idea of spraying the bed liner one coat and then adding some fine sand and then spraying one or more coats of additional bed liner to add texture. So as I said, I've been working with a few different combinations. This one here uses the bed liner that I showed earlier where it specifically says it adheres with plastics. And then this one here with a white is using like a rubberized spray that I'll show you in a second. The reason why I was even trying the rubberized one is because it had white and black as color choices, and it would be nice to be able to have additional colors than just black. Like this one here has added sand to it. The sloper here. This one here has a bit too much sand, and this is also using that rubber one, so it feels okay. My concern with the ones with the rubber is how they will hold up with climbing shoes with feet popping off. on accident or on purpose, is it going to take that rubber with it? And so the longevity of it is a concern with this rubber one. So that's part of my testing. And then the other part of experimentation is what order of operations. How long do I wait to add the next coats? How many coats? And I do think I've come up with a best case scenario, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And so I'm going to show you two of the holds that turned out the best so far, and that's what we're going to try to duplicate. This one here added quite a bit of texture, but it feels like, you know, like a new hold. Just certain brands have more texture, so some of the brands that are quite textured, this is what that one feels like. And then this one is probably my favorite one, my best result. It feels nice and hard, doesn't feel rubbery, and it feels like it's going to hold up, and actually it has so far in my testing, and it legitimately feels like the texture of a new hold. So why don't we get out here into some ventilation area, and why don't I go through how we're putting this together. I will leave links in the description for all of the products that I used and found, and that way you can find them quickly and easily as well. They are Amazon affiliate links, so if you do decide to click on them, it will help out the channel a tiny bit, and I so appreciate that. And speaking of helping out the channel, if you're liking this, why don't you give it a thumbs up? Tell YouTube that you like it. And I do have a subscribe button, so if you clip the chains on the subscribe button, that will really help me out as well. So let's start off with the list of materials. So first of all, you're going to need the spray-on Rhino liner of your choice. So like I said, I've been using this stuff called Herculiner. I specifically bought this one because it says it adheres to plastics, and the other brands did not specify plastic. I did also try these ones called Plasti-Dip. They say that it is rubber coating, and I was trying it because it's available in the white and black. The verdict is still out on the longevity of the use of these ones, and my main concern is on here it does say that it is peelable and it will peel off when you want it to, but in this case I don't want it to, so we'll see how that goes. Having some paper towels on hand is going to be helpful because it does get a little bit messy. I'm using a scrap piece of cardboard here for my spray back, and then I also purchased this fine sand. Honestly, I probably could have gone even finer than this, but this is what I could find at the moment. It is kind of a bigger bucket. You probably won't need this much. At first I was like, I bought too much and this is too big of a bucket for it. However, I did find that having a big enough bucket or big enough space to dip the holes into has been helpful. Some rough sandpaper is also pretty helpful. It might seem counterintuitive, but you can use this to scrape up the surface that you're going to want to adhere to. It gives it a little bit more adhesion in my opinion, but obviously the counterintuitive part of it is that it takes texture away from your plastic in the first place. And then last and certainly not least is you actually need the holds that you're going to use. You know, if they're polished holds. This whole bucket was pretty much all purchased from a climbing gym that had used them for quite a long time, so they were very, very polished. So without further ado, let's get into making some of these. So let's start with this orange one here. You can see it's quite polished. Like, this is the usable area. This edge is just smooth as can be. So this would be a good hold, but I definitely want it to be more texture. One other thing to talk about while I'm here is that some of these older holds, around the bolt hole, it is kind of bowing. And so I actually use the sandpaper as well to flatten out that back so that it sits flush. Alright, so I'm going to take the sandpaper and just kind of roughly scuff up the areas, especially this super smooth area, just to give the bed liner something to adhere to. And I'm purposely using very coarse sandpaper. Shake up the bed liner really good. One other thing to say about this is if you did want to protect like the color or anything on one area and not make that retextured, kind of dual text or different texture, then I've just put tape over the areas I don't want. The other thing you could do is when you set it down with the usable surface facing you, but the back part being the other exposed part. So this is the front, this the down part. And that way, if there is any overspray, it goes to the back. So obviously with this type of thing, you want to be in a well-ventilated area. I'm outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of spray a healthy layer here. And then while it's wet, I'm going to grab it and I'm going to stick it in the sand. So here we go. And I don't really wiggle it around too much. I just kind of press it hard and maybe rock it back and forth a little bit to make sure things stick. So got quite a bit there, but obviously some of that is going to fall off. And especially I don't want some of the bigger grains. Some of my early testing, I actually just immediately sprayed it again with another layer to lock it all in. But I found that I like it better when I let the first layer of sand adhere and kind of bake in with the first spray of the Rhino liner. So we're gonna let this sit for a little bit in the sun and the wind. Yeah, so this yellow one, again, super polished over here. Paper towel comes in handy if I want to like wipe off some of these front spots here. Before it dries. So like I said, I've been experimenting with this rubber one here. I like it that it's white. My goal is to determine which one is like the best. So I think it's going to take a little bit more wear and tear in the garage on some of the ones I created earlier. But why don't we go ahead and try a white rubbery one with the Plasti-Dip and see how that works in this case. But I will just tell you straight up so far, the Herculiner one has hardened and felt a lot more like real plastic so far. So the early verdict is that that is the better of the options. I think it'd be great if they offered this in multiple colors. So let me know if you find anything like that. So we can try this in-cut one. It just seems like it comes out runnier, so I'm just really thinking it's not adhering to the plastic as well. Alright, so this one's next. This one's quite in-cut, and it does have a little bit of texture remaining on the inside, just the outside edge is very, very smooth. And so for this one, I'm actually going to try it without the sand. I'm just going to try the Herculiner. Kind of just accentuates the existing texture, what little bit is left. And so this one I'm going to do with Herculiner only. This shape looks awesome. Just a simple edge, like not even a flat edge, just slightly slopey. Looks like a great hold. But I'm going to bring some life back to it. Alright, so that's probably good enough for now. I'm going to let these bake for a little bit. Alright, so it's gotten really windy. There's a storm coming in here, and so I want to do this next step here real quick with you. The next step for these ones that we added sand, now that it's kind of baked into that first layer, is we're just going to kind of work it and smooth it out so that way it's not so aggressive. So just by kind of using our hands and brushing off excess. This step reminds me a lot of when shapers are working with foam and they're kind of working with their fingers as that final step to get the shape and the texture. Kind of working on finding some of the bigger chunks and kind of work those out of it, but nice and gently just kind of sweeping it out. Sorry about the noise, but man, it's getting crazy windy out here. The other thing to think about this step as you're smoothing it out is that left alone, this is too aggressive still already. Keep in mind that we're going to add 2 layers, maybe more, but 2 more layers of the bed liner. That's going to fill in the gaps and smooth it out a little bit. I think the next one I did was this yellow one. Same thing. Then here's that really cool looking red one. And then this yellow one is the one I wasn't so sure about how it would turn out because it has that Plasti-Dip on it. So I'm not even sure how well this is going to hold. So it's kind of holding. We'll see how it does with the second layer, but most of it is kind of falling off. Alright, so we're going to let those dry a little bit longer and wait for this wind to die down before we go to the next spray set. Alright, so now it's been a few hours and the wind has definitely died down and definitely feels like it's kind of baked in there. So I think we're ready for the next layer of the bed liner. I'm going to set these three up that are all going to get the black. As I mentioned when we were in the windstorm, that if I just left these be, they would be too much texture, but the next layer to 2 layers should definitely like even this out and lock it all the texture in. Alright, we're going to leave that set for another little while. We don't have to leave it quite as long because it just needs to kind of set and fill in and take the shape and lock it in, and then we'll do one final coat of each, I believe. I will also say that this one can has lasted quite a while. I believe this was about $15. Again, I'll put links down in the description if this is the kind that you decide to go with. But this one $15 can still feels like it's got about a third of it left. And I've used it on probably 20 holds by now. So I think you can get a lot of good value out of it. And these Plasti-Dip ones were, I believe, $9. Alright, so one more little wrinkle in here. I really wanted to find something other than just the black color that would work. And so far, I can only find the Herculiner in black. So in my search for other colors, I found another product called Raptor Truck Bed Coating, and it looks very similar, but this one also does say it adheres to plastic, and it comes in black, white, and gray. I went out and bought some of that, and I'm going to test run that. I don't think the Plasti-Dip variation is going to really hold up long term. I could be wrong, but I'm kind of leaning away from the Plasti-Dip, but we'll see how that actually turns out. While the second coat of these is drying, I'm going to test out this Raptor, see if it has the same effect as the Herculiner. I'm going to first try it without any sand and just see if it adds texture that way, you know, based on how it sprays, or if I need to do the same tactic as with these. Interesting spray pattern, so I wonder if that alone would be enough and not use the sand. And we'll give these guys a third and final coat. So while we're waiting, why don't I give this Raptor stuff a try with the sand. Already on this first try, it feels like it's more sticky. So now it's just a matter of how well it hardens. Alright, here's the one I did with the Raptor spray, and it's been left for a few minutes. I feel like it's basically dry to the touch. It says that it dries within 15 minutes, so I'm just kind of doing the same thing I did before, is clearing off some of these bigger grains. Yeah, I may have changed my mind on which one is my favorite. This is ready for the first overcoat. So here's that one that had no sand and it's just the spray-on stuff. It says on the can only 10 to 15 minutes between coats, which is kind of nice. It does already feel basically dry. It says completely dry within 1 hour or dry to the touch, and then it says that it should be ready for use within 3 to 4 hours. And I did also just hit this one that was with that Plasti-Dip that I don't think was going to work out. I did hit this with a coat as well. Alright, we're going to get up and close here. So this is one of the ones with the Herculiner. It's still a little bit tacky, so I don't really want to get into it too much with my hands, but you can kind of see this texture here. And so I think this is basically going to be the texture. I could maybe throw one more coat on it to smooth it out even more, but if you check that out just visually and compare it with a brand new hold, say they're pretty close to the same. And it's just been a few more minutes, and this is basically again dry, so probably ready for the next coat. And it just amazes me how fast that is. So I'm going to give this one more coat just to see if it smooths out a little bit more. Alright, so that's it for now. We're going to let these basically completely cure and completely dry, probably overnight even. And then we're going to get them on the wall, and that the main thing is to again see about the longevity and if they really feel like climbing holds. So I'll check you soon. Alright, we're back. It's the next day, and I have with me the finished products of the ones we literally just worked on, and I'm really pleased with how they turned out. I'm going to try to get this to show up on the camera, like the amount of texture that is back added onto here. But they feel really good. They don't feel overly abrasive. They feel like new climbing holds. And then I believe you could definitely fine tune the amount of texture by how many coats you do after the sand. This is 2 coats of the Herculiner bed liner, and I really like how this sets up. Like, it feels hard. It feels like its own plastic now. And I'm thinking with even a 3rd coat, it would be like a little bit smoother. So you could fine tune the actual texture to mimic different climbing hold companies. So for instance, like So Ill tends to have more abrasive, versus like a Nikros might be a little bit smoother. Overall, I'm really liking how these turn out. These actually feel like new moonboard holds, which is what I was really kind of going for. And it's pretty darn hard, so I definitely think it's going to feel like a plastic climbing hold. As I've been saying earlier, the main concern that still remains is how these will hold up over time, but I don't think it's so much how it's going to hold up with the handhold usage, but using them with footholds. So I'm going to put these through the ringer on the climbing wall and just really try to use them more with my feet and just try to abuse them a little bit and just see how it holds up. So here's that one that I added the gray Raptor bed liner, and so it's definitely a bit smoother, but it does have a little bit of texture feel to it. The finish on the Raptor does feel a little bit glossier than the Herculiner, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And I don't know, it just feels really good. It feels like once I get some chalk on my hands, it's going to feel pretty normal. This is that slopey foothold that I added the Raptor bed liner onto with sand. It feels hard. It feels pretty normal. You can see kind of a little bit more sheen on this, and so it is a little bit glossier, but this is going to be a great one for me to test with my footholds. So I'm going to throw a bunch of these on the wall, see how they go. Alright, so I feel like we got the system down. Let's put these things through some abuse. They're feeling really good for handholds. So this one is kind of wearing off right away already with the footholds, but this is like a hybrid one, so I'm not really sure what it is. So the first layer was actually the Plasti-Dip, and so it is rubber on that first layer, so that might be the cause of this peeling right here. A better indicator is going to be this one down here. So this one here is a slopey kind of foothold, and it still feels like it's got pretty good texture. I've used my shoes on it, but the first few attempts, it was still kind of taking some beads of sand off. So now that I've kind of worn it in a little bit here, I want to see how it handles for footholds and if it holds up as far as not ripping off. It's still pretty slick. Now that like the beads of sand are kind of off, it's definitely holding better. Yeah, that's got some grip. So it feels like it just needs a little bit of work. The texture is holding up, and I don't see any peeling happening. It's just the little beads of sand that I'm feeling on the bottom of my climbing shoes. I'm going to try this one here a bit more aggressively with my shoes, because this one here is the Herculiner, and just see how that holds up. Alright, so there was a foot pop, and it did take a chunk of stuff off of there. So, not ideal, but let's try another one with a foothold. Just see how this one holds up. So unfortunately, it is peeling a little bit. Yeah, it's frustrating. So not quite the result. I mean, it still feels good for the hands, but I just don't like that it's peeling off for the feet. And I'm wondering if more cure time would affect that. Although this one here is from a couple days ago, and it seems to be holding up for footholds. So let me try this one and just see. Start with clean shoes maybe. That seems to be holding up. Let's try this one, the sloper one. Same thing, it's from a couple days ago. Okay, I don't feel anything on the bottom of my shoes there. So, might just need to cure a little bit longer. Alright, so here's the big question. Is it worth it? Did it work? Kind of, mostly, I'm going to say mostly yes. I do think I'm going to continue on with this process of retexturing some of these older holds before I full out go after it with the moonboard holds, just to make sure. But I am mostly pleased with how it turned out, and I was being pretty aggressive. Over time they may harden even further. So I would say I'm probably at about an 80% positivity on this process, and I think it is cost effective to repurpose your old polished holds, but there may be some drawbacks or some things to be aware of, especially the use of climbing shoes. But overall, I'm pretty pleased. Let me know what you think about this solution in the comments below. If it is something that you want to try for yourself, just remember that I'm going to put links to the products that I used down below. I would say that I could easily recommend the Herculiner and the Raptor, but probably not the Plasti-Dip. To compare the two that I do like, the Herculiner only had the one color, and the cost per ounce of spray was a little bit more cost effective. However, the Raptor was still pretty cost effective per ounce. It had the 3 color options of gray, white, and black. And I do think that I ended up using less. It was like more efficient spray coverage. And so I think it may end up lasting longer to make up for that cost difference. So there you have it. Hopefully this helped you out. Don't forget to click the chains on the subscribe button if you like what's going on here. I'll see you real soon.